Hey there, just hanging out for a while. You know, Today's a funny day. I am meeting with a collaborator later today that we're talking about our joint dog behavior modification package, um, which is really exciting. But I'm also, you know, having these mental positionings where I feel, it can be easy to get caught in thought and get caught in that anxiety of just being alive and feeling like all of these different fears and things just pop out at us and distract us, and we feel like we just want to wipe the slate clean and have things be blank and, you know, have everything be super minimalist and um during these times, and it just constantly feels like things are too overwhelming for me, and it becomes really hard to focus on the pleasant things. And I know that's just because I'm in this like super analytical mode. Like sometimes I look around and all the things in my house, it brings me joy and beauty, all the colors, all the textures. um So, you know, I'm just thinking about how, like, what are those things, and getting to know myself more, right? So I can be more authentic and bring that to the development of myself as a business operator, and bring that to, the things I experiment with in my businesses. I'm thinking about, um, what are the things that I have that interest in, like hobbies that I'm unaware of, but things that bring the ways that I connect with people, it makes it sustainable for me and enjoyable and not so consumed by anxiety. And you know I'm really interested in people's stories who have transformed their lives. Of course, we all are, but people who I can relate to personally, people who I feel like I hear their story and I'm like, that feels relatable to me, and I feel like it's really hard for me to find people that I can relate to in a big way, Um but I'm just wondering, like, where are all the people out there who have been like how I am right now, where I am at these beginning stages of, well, I'm further in than I sometimes think, you know. These stages of being a business operator, where are the people who they struggled with, you could say ADHD type symptoms along the way, and just feeling like mentally overwhelmed and unsure how to filter information, the criteria to filter information, so that we're not overwhelmed by it, and just working with our mind to enjoy things more. And I sometimes it can feel so hard just seeing myself as always this work in progress, always seeing myself as like, ugh, I gotta aspire to something and I'm not good enough as I am now, and there is so much wrong with how I am, compared to how I wish I could be, how I want to be. And this question also, of like, what is my actual potential? Um, like, as far as, and what is normal also? What is normal to experience? But being like, what is my potential where I could feel really fit and strong and healthy every day, and I'm really passionate and engaged in what I'm doing every day. And I want to say I'm on that path, and it just takes a lot of patience, you know, to grow into that and to edit things as I go, and especially connecting with other people is really crucial, because without connecting to other people, we can't have that sense of like we're doing this together, like we are all, that powerful force of community where it feels like we are on we've joined the train, so to speak, um it's really hard, and I know it's worth it, but sometimes I'm just like, what are those things that I'm unaware of for myself that will bring levity to my life? Those places where, yes, like I do go in deep, I do go in asking to be serious, asking myself to put in a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of change and a lot of, manipulating myself, or put in less acidic terms, using CBT on myself to try to evoke the different behaviors I want in a non-violent way, you know? Just trying to coax myself to be a different way. And there's parts of me that are like, well, part of how I am is because of all the experiences that have happened to me, the things beyond my control, the way that the world and different cultural things in the world, religion and these philosophies of how to collaborate and how to communicate emotions and negotiate what we want, and all these different narratives that have affected me really badly, and sexism, and all the fun stuff, just being like, how has this impacted me to where I am now, and having compassion for myself, or I am the way I am because of so many factors beyond my control. And while I don't want to set myself up in a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know, I don't want to set myself up in a self-fulfilling prophecy to be like, okay, this is how I am and that's it. I want to continue towards my goals, but it can be so discouraging to be like, okay, my goal, like I'm trying so hard to stay positive and optimistic and reframing and affirming and all this stuff, but my goals they seem far further away than ever. And I know it's important to enjoy the process of every day. You know, it's important to enjoy hobbies and enjoy um just little pleasant things of being a human, and those smaller moments of how we expand our awareness to really feel the beauty around us, so that we can, not just feel closed off and trapped in fear, trapped in the to-do list, trapped in performing, but we can feel really in touch with our spirit and that sense of appreciating the process and appreciating all the beautiful things that we're doing all this stuff for in order to have, and yeah, sometimes it just feels like terror, almost like just like understated terror, just like there's so much to do, and so many ways things could go wrong, and so many ways I see hope slipping through the cracks, and I see the things that I want being jeopardized like every day, and it's like I'm trying to negotiate that with also being like, well, I want myself to thrive. I have this idea that I'm experimenting with, and I really have this faith and deep seated like conviction that keeps on saying like, but what if something beautiful can happen, and what if you do keep on experimenting with, how to be authentic to yourself, and develop this more sustainable long-term path of earning money in a way that is um, conducive to my advantages and my disadvantages, right? To my unique self, how the world how other forces outside of me have shaped me, and to my preferences too. It's a really big question, and but it's crazy making to try to just think of these things all day, every day, and it's like, where are those things that I can experiment with a little bit more to open myself to the world and to experiment with being authentic in ways that I haven't before. Life is really a spiritual journey, and I think it's important that we focus less on outcome, trying to, in the sense of trying to strategize to get some type of exact outcome, like exact money or exact certainty, but that we instead focus on how can I um, work on my spiritual development in the sense of increasing um, my authenticity and being honest, expressing honestly, and just being like curious, like, and based on hunches, good hunches I have from seeing things in the world around me, being like, well, what will happen if I am more honest and if I am more daring through my authentic lens, and just being like, yeah, this is me, and what are the good things that can come out of that? What are the the collaborations and the connections with people that, like, how do things build out from there, like that is a big question on my mind. And I'm grateful that things are different from how they have been when I was younger. um I'm proud of myself for all the ways I've steered myself to make real changes in my life and have economic stability. Um, kind of. I mean, it's economically stable, but I am a homemaker. It's my partner's money, it's not my money. And that is really anxiety provoking for me. And and it's something that isn't a part of my values. And yeah, it's definitely a long road, but I think it's a road that is worth it. And yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to, have this space to even let these fears emerge. Like, I remember a few months ago working for Amazon, and I worked for Amazon for 2.5 years delivering packages, and I remember just being like, I mean, it was a lot more painful and without hope also. It was without hope. Um, and I'm really grateful that things aren't like that anymore. But that doesn't negate, just make it be like easy breezy. And there's a lot of work and learning how to do a different type of work. It's a big learning curve of learning to adjust the entire way that my brain has been wired to work, I guess, or figuring out how can I work with other people to let myself um like I'm working through my innate natural qualities, but good things, like really great things can come out, you know, like working according to our strengths. So yeah, it's a difficult process, but ultimately I'm grateful to even be in this position of learning. And yeah, we are gonna get through this. Um, we're gonna get through this, and we are going to be really grateful in the future for all of the sacrifices and the work that we've been taking in the present. You know, when we feel depressed and we just want to lay down and close our eyes all day, and when we don't want to think about the credit cards that are, you know, they're going like this in the background, you know, the credit card debt, and when we don't want to think about the, you know, the bleakness of trying to put ourselves back in the 9 to 5 job market and the havoc that wreaks in our bodies, um, and our minds, you know, because not all of us are blessed to be eligible for decent 9 to 5 type typical jobs, you know, like I don't have those kinds of skills. You know, I came from a background where I was doing farm work as a kid, and I wasn't trained to, um, like to be thinking about my career. I was basically just told, you know, being a woman in a religious environment, I was basically just told, like, you're going to be a wife. You don't need to have skills. You don't need to have a job, you know, and um, you don't need to be thinking about a career. You don't need to be, you know, that's kind of the what I was taught. Nobody talked to me about my career. What do you want to do? What are your plans? What Nobody talked to me about that. So I, you know, and I was like, well, I'm not going to just sit around in these home environments, unstable home environments that are, they have a lot of discord in them. So I was like, okay, got to get out there somewhere. And I just was like, well, I did farm work. I know I can do that. I love nature. Like, I was all into the primal caveman stuff in the time in my late teens. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do work exchanges on farms. And that's how I started, like, getting by, you know, with my living. Um, or like earning a living, so to speak, or earning, you know, it wasn't a living. Like, sometimes I would make like $75 a month, or sorry, not a month, a week. So it wasn't really a living, but it was like a place to stay, you know, a place to stay, a community to be a part of, activities to do. So that was the path that I took, and but you know, because of um, my own emotional traumas and gravitation towards addiction, and um, you know, I ended up gravitating toward, and you know, an inability, I guess, to tell what are healthy dynamics at that time. You know, I didn't have that ability. I mean, there's so many more factors to the conversation, so many more events that happened. I can't get into my whole life history, but I basically was in compromising situations, and ended up becoming homeless because of it, where, you know, the work exchanges on farms just ended up being like, well, I can't make money anyway, there's not much to live for, having really low self-esteem, that I was like, I'm just gonna um, basically be homeless, and like started to look into like transient, like train hopper type of life, you know, like that kind of thing, and starting to bump shoulders with people in those environments. And I never train hopped myself. That, you know, I kind of wish I did at the time. I That's the only time in my life I would have done something like that. But um, you know, that's kind of the environment that I was in, trying to feel like, how do I have pride in myself and know my lifestyle and know my role in the world? Trying to experiment with all this, and I ended up, you know, big chain of events, but I ended up having a rock bottom of my health being horrible. Um, like emaciated, and it wasn't because of, I don't know, like meth or anything. It was, I mean, I was smoked weed and drank alcohol and cigarettes, but that was it for me. But it was just because I wasn't eating. Like I was always just walking and afraid, feeling like I was like, okay, well, I can't be a part of society. And I can't live in you know, the 9 to 5 system. Like that does not work for me. And so I was trying to find my way to live outside of that the best I could think. And with my huge, like, fears of people, because the environments I'd grown up in, the the way that the adults in my life massively failed me as a kid. Like that's the reality of it. And I understand there's also that side that we, everybody does what they can. Like I failed people too. Like everybody, we do the best that we can according to the resources we've had access to. But at the same time, we have to be a little bit more, um, we just have to remember, like, if things didn't suck, if we could change things so they don't suck, then we could save people from mindsets and reference points and narratives that cause so much harm. And part of it is just being alive in this point in history. Um, so yeah, so basically um, when I was getting out of that, kind of rock bottom point of being emaciated and having panic disorder, and when I was stopping drinking alcohol and weed, and you know, my life started to change, just slowly becoming domesticated, kind of, and understanding more, like, what I think it means to be a human and a part of society, and what are my own rules that I can operate according to and connect with people over. Um, and how can I understand myself in positive ways in order to be like, oh, I can connect with people in positive ways and not have to just feel like my role is to always play the villain or the hated um person, that like no matter what, people are going to hate me, people are going to harm me, you know? Um the formative childhood experiences really can shape people to have this kind of outlook on the world. And we can silence it and focus on other things along our path and focus on positive things, but I think it's always going to be a part of us, right? And we have to integrate these parts of us in order to bring justice and dignity and realism, practicality to the things that did affect us and did cause us to be differently abled or to not fit within the mainstream of society. And we have to understand ourselves in a fair paradigm, in order to have appropriate values for ourselves and appropriate expectations for ourselves. All this goes into how do we keep our emotions feeling good? How do we keep our emotions feeling motivated, so that we can have behaviors that help us and are in line with our goals and our desires and our values? It's the whole premise of CBT. And um, yeah, so, like I'm saying, like these are the kind of things that are always on my mind. And part of me, I know it's like an anxiety kind of thing. And the other part of me is like, well, it's also such a common human, like, problem and or perspective or reality, for so many people. And there needs, instead of just writing it off as like, oh, mental illness, oh, like they're just lost, like, you guys, you're just lost to history, and sorry, there's no hope for you, like, instead of seeing ourselves in that kind of discounting way that the world can see us in so often. Like, we really have to take the power into our own hands to be like, no, our narrative matters. Our reality is different. The like living, breathing, raw reality is different from the simplistic, like, classifications that other people understand us in from the outside, you know? Other people, we have to give ourselves more credit and authority for understanding our own selves and owning our narrative and what it means to us, you know? Um, and because that's a part of why we have trouble, like, having a stable income, basically, because all this has to do with income. Like, because we try to fit into, or we get classified with um diagnoses or kind of like hopeless categories based on this institutional practice of being like, well, we have to have some kind of legal system to recognize why we should get resources from the government, you know? So that is kind of where diagnoses even come from when it comes to mental health related things. I mean, it's also useful to have labels to kind of talk about similar experiences and identities, but mm, I mean, the primary way that this was thought of, or, that we classify mental um, or physical, sometimes physical illnesses, it can sometimes be more a legal kind of thing for advocating, like helping us advocate to get resources. And if, you know, if my goal is to get resources by being like, no, I'm not going to other myself anymore. I'm not going to be swept into this inclination of people wanting to feel othered, or people wanting to other because they can profit off of othered, disenfranchised people out of touch with our power and agency and authenticity, you know? It's important not to other ourselves to the point that are we kind of set a self-fulfilling prophecy where we are less connected to our true desires, because we feel like we have to play this role of incapacitated in order to get our basic safety and needs met with money, you know? And um yeah, it's so, in developing a business, we really have to come at it from this perspective of being authentic to what, you know, how we can actually work with things, how we can do the activities that are needed within the scope of our business, becoming a business operator. We might have some limitations that can't really be changed, and so we have to find a means of exchanging value in return for value that works with our limitations. And our limitations, sometimes it's like we have different, our energy levels and where our mind is, our moods, our abilities, so to speak, that can change vastly from day to day. I mean, not vastly. It's not like we're gonna become an Olympic athlete one day, but you know what I mean. Like, um, and through it all, we just have to keep on being consistent with what we can in the moment, with what, experimenting with what gives us more of that sense of coziness and ease. And because that is what allows us to be consistent, and that's a big part of having our own business, right? Like, we have to be consistent in something. We have to be available for people who need us. We have to be available for people who um, who we are able to assist and who need the specific kind of assistance that we provide, with a specific voice um, and person that we are. Different people are accessible to different people. So, and we all have to hear things in a way that is accessible to us in order to really be open to taking things on sometimes. So, yeah, that is just what is on my mind today. And, you know, there is so much value to honoring our need to understand the bigger picture of what's going on, but also sometimes it takes so much mental energy to get into this what's it called, higher level thinking, just where we're like looking at it from like a big picture point of view. It can take a lot of mental energy and a lot of emotions too, right? So, and that can be exhausting. So, even if it's encouraging, it can be exhausting. So, it's also important to have just activities that are pleasant and enjoyable. And for me, I feel guilt over that. Like if I wanted to like paint, if I want to sit down and paint, I feel guilty. I'm like, you're not making money. You're not making money. How is this? Why should you be doing this? If I want to sit down and just let just what is it called, the default mode network, I think. It's that system in the background of our brains that it's our subconscious processing information basically and integrating it into us. And it can't operate if we're constantly listening to movies or TV or music or people talking on podcasts. It can't operate when we are listening to other things or just busy with life. If we're talking to clients or in our job or whatever it is, we kind of need that meditative, really relaxed but still conscious state for it to take over the default mode network. So a lot of us can't really be integrated, and the different learning parts of our brain, the parts that we're learning, it can't really like connect and be like a full brain kind of thing. It's like we have learning parts that are segmented in our minds, and we can't really form those connections across the sections, and have what we're learning be really fully integrated into us unless we have those spaces to just be calm and not really think. And that, yeah, that is something I'm working on, because it's really anxiety provoking when you're like, but I'm not making money. What if, what if? And it's stressful and it's real, but so many of us are going through this, and there's so many amazing people to learn from, to be like, what what are parts of our journey of like how how are people getting to and journeying like slowly together into ways of exchanging value in return for value. And I do think that we don't have to like wait until we're at a certain level in order to make money necessarily. I think that earning money right now, we can be like, nope, we're going to earn money right now. And we can find a way to do that that works well and doesn't create so much stress. So, yeah, keep up your hope. And yeah, I'd love to hear your stories, um, and just relate over all this life stuff. It's not fun to feel um, alone, or only to feel kind of like parasocially together with other people. It's so essential to have actual like co-creative back and forth relationships when it comes to these topics, so that we realize we really are not alone whatsoever in this, and we can work with other people in similar positions, or not exact similar positions, but just other people who care about humanity, you know. We can work with people to get out of these really painful um, ways of living, or painful states of being, painful anxiety of being alive. But yeah, there's so many beautiful things also. So remember to focus on the beautiful, and to focus on your joy and what brings you more peace, feeling more in control, feeling more interested, intrigued, you know, just follow what comes easy to you, because that's what's going to be what can be most consistent for you. So, yeah, take care. Bye.